Tonight, we begin with a decision that defense officials had anticipated, diplomats had debated, and Moscow had feared. A decision that unfolded not over months of deliberation, but in 72 hours. 72 hours that changed the trajectory of this war. 72 hours that left the Kremlin scrambling. 72 hours that showed the world what American resolve looks like when fully unleashed. What President Trump did today crossed a line that the Biden administration had drawn in red ink and refused to touch. And when that line broke, Ukraine did not hesitate. They responded with precision, speed, and overwhelming force. For months now, there had been whispers, not official statements, not Pentagon briefings, just whispers that the Trump administration was preparing something unprecedented. Trump has been unpredictable, yes, but he has been consistent in his unpredictability. His moves have followed a certain logic, a rhythm, almost a pattern. But what set off alarm bells in Moscow this week was that the pattern went silent. Intelligence analysts who monitor White House communications know the indicators. The sudden classified briefings, the quiet phone calls to Kyiv, the movement of assets in European bases, the sudden silence from Trump's social media, all of that went quiet. And whenever Trump goes quiet, it means something is about to get loud. Early Tuesday morning, Pentagon sources detected what they described as significant logistical movements, including ATACMS long-range missile systems that had not been authorized for transfer in over 3 years. These are the kinds of weapons that the Biden administration only discussed in theoretical terms, too escalatory, too provocative, or too destabilizing. Observers didn't know which category this decision fell into or whether it fell into all three at once. But what they did know was that Trump was changing America's posture. And when a superpower shifts posture without warning, even by small measures, the world pays attention. The statement issued by the White House tonight was not normal. It was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was definitive. Officials after the National Security Council meeting described Trump's authorization as bold, overdue, and perhaps most importantly, irreversible. But deterrence only works if the target hesitates. Putin did not. In fact, Russia's response today was among the most panicked we've seen in this entire conflict. Here's what we know. Within 6 hours of the announcement, Ukraine launched its first ATACMS strikes. These weren't the limited systems sent before. These were the extended range variants weapons that Ukraine only deploys when they are preparing to reshape the battlefield entirely. Tonight, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry confirmed that Kyiv launched precision strikes on Russian command centers, including a logistics hub in Crimea that had recently been reinforced for what analysts believe was a spring offensive. Ukraine struck before Russia could disperse. They hit ammunition depots. They hit fuel storage facilities. They hit command posts that were likely preparing to coordinate fresh attacks. In other words, Ukraine targeted the nervous system of Russia's southern front, the infrastructure that would have made their next offensive operational. This is what made Trump's decision so consequential. Biden's restrictions weren't just cautious, they were crippling. They represented the kind of restraint that allowed Russia to regroup, reorganize, and strike again. And Ukraine, understanding that fully, responded with force. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but strategically. They didn't waste missiles on symbolic targets. They didn't broadcast their plans. They hit what mattered most. They hit what Russia could not afford to lose. And here's where the story becomes even more significant. Western intelligence officials now believe that Putin's recent posturing was designed to test the resolve of the new American administration. After years of perceived weakness, Putin wanted to see whether Trump would continue Biden's cautious approach. But instead, the opposite happened. Trump didn't hesitate. He authorized a weapons package that was so immediate, so comprehensive, that even the Kremlin noticed. You don't get Moscow's attention easily. But today, Washington did. Defense analysts speaking with international media under anonymity described Putin's reaction as recalibration, a way to buy time while assessing this new reality. But Trump proved today that he remains both unpredictable and decisive. His authorization was not only swift, it was timed so precisely that Russia had no opportunity to prepare countermeasures. As reports continued coming in throughout the evening, we learned more about the scale of Ukraine's response. Ukrainian forces carried out 17 precision strikes, forcing Russian units to abandon forward positions. Special operations units targeted radar installations that had been upgraded in the last 90 days. Drone squadrons operating behind enemy lines reportedly destroyed fuel convoys used by Russia to sustain their frontline troops. This wasn't just a military operation. This wasn't just a tactical adjustment. This was a strategic statement. This was battlefield dominance. And battlefield dominance is the one thing Russia has struggled to maintain since 2022. For every advance they have made, Ukraine has countered with something that erases their gains entirely. Remember, Putin thought Biden's restrictions would remain permanent. He thought Washington would never provide long-range strike capability. He thought Ukraine would eventually run out of options. But tonight, the exact opposite is happening. Washington is fully committed. Kyiv is fully armed, and Moscow is fully exposed. As the night goes on, we expect more details to emerge about what exactly Putin hoped to achieve with his provocations. But what we do know is that Trump's decision was timely. It restored American credibility. It empowered Ukrainian defenders. And it sent an unmistakable message to Moscow. What happens next will depend on what Russia does in the next 48 hours. If they de-escalate, this moment will be remembered as the turning point. If they escalate further, Ukraine and America have already shown they are ready. They have shown they are prepared to respond. And tonight, for the first time in months, the Kremlin appears to be rattled. Moscow is quiet. Too quiet. And when Putin is quiet, it means he is calculating. It means he is choosing his next move carefully. Because tonight, Russia learned something they should have understood long ago. America's patience has limits. Ukraine's resolve has none. And this war is far from over. This story is developing rapidly. But tonight, one thing is clear. Trump delivered what Biden denied. Ukraine struck while Russia panicked. And the world is watching. And we will be here covering every detail as the next phase unfolds.